titled "What's at Stake in the Coming Election?" And we had a complete technological breakdown, and we had a complete breakdown in terms of our technology. So Catherine Terser of Common Cause Ohio and our past president of the League of Women Voters, Elizabeth Brown, we'll get them at another time. We'll get that message out to you, but sorry about that for anybody that linked in. But so this is really our first forum, 42nd year of doing forums for Christ Church every other Thursday. I must give you a hint, though, that we're not doing every other Thursday this time. We're having a forum next time with the congressional race between Congressman Shabbat and Greg Landsman, and some other ballot issues. So next Thursday we'll be meeting at the same time at noon on October 6th. Today we've got an interesting forum for you. We've got leading off Councilman Mark Jeffries, who's a leading sponsor of this ballot initiative charter amendment that's facing this November in terms of doing away with the mayor's pocket veto at City Council. And so Mark is one of the key sponsors of that charter amendment. So he's going to lead us into a little discussion. And then second of all, we decided to focus on this major Ohio Senate race between J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan. Unfortunately, I learned we worked like the devil trying to get a representative of J.D. Vance, but we're unable. They finally said they were unable to get us a speaker, even a substitute speaker. And we actually have a substitute speaker in terms of Tim Ryan, Congressman Tim Ryan. Carrie Russell Hartman, who is the political director of that campaign, will be speaking about that campaign. But unfortunately, we do not have a spokesperson for the J.D. Vance campaign, but we'll get on with it anyway, because it's an important race and we need to discuss it. I think we'll lead off with Councilman Jeffries giving us a review of this pocket veto amendment, and then take it from there. We'll get on to a discussion of the hotly contested Senate race, which seems every day the poll seems to be closer and closer. So that'll be good. So I'm going to turn it over to Council Member Mark Jeffries, a new member of Cincinnati City Council as of a year ago. And he's going to talk about this pocket veto amendment.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bill. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to share some background on what will be issue 11 on the ballot. First of all, this hopefully will not, I don't think this will be hotly contested, certainly not as much as the Senate seat. So I think this is an issue that hopefully will gain broad support. So let me just explain a little bit of what the background is on what this is, some of the details, and why we put it forward. So as Bill alluded, currently under our current government, there is an opportunity for our mayor and committee chairs to exercise what is called the pocket veto. So what is that exactly? That is, in effect, the ability to delay or not put items on the agenda. So in theory, the mayor or a committee chair, if somebody introduces a piece of legislation on council, day one of council, in theory, they could wait until 104 weeks, in other words, all 2 years, and put it on the last day of council, and they put it on, but effectively it kills it, right? So that is what is termed the pocket veto. We often refer to it as the mayor, but committee chairs can also, in effect, exercise that power. Now, to be clear, the current mayor, Mayor Aftab Puravel, has said he won't do this and has no intention of doing it. But that is something that is possible, certainly, even as a threat kind of in the future. So how did we get to this point? As you all know, in 1989, we went to a stronger mayor system and implemented in 2002. And this was kind of an unintended loophole or that was not intended. In effect, what it does is give the mayor and committee chairs incredible power to just block anything that they don't like for any reason. And so going back over, I think it was 9 years ago, there was a charter committee task force that was pulled together, including Carolyn Miller, who is on here today, and she can weigh in a few minutes, who reviewed the charter and what changes need to be made. And this was one of their recommendations. So I think it was 7 years ago, this was recommended after 2 years of community engagement and input by the public. And so for the last 7 years, nothing has been acted upon or implemented. You may recall last year in the election, Tom Brinkman had put together a series of actions, and this was one of, I think there were 9, I don't remember exactly. But this one has engendered a lot of support over the years, but it just has not been on the ballot to officially get done. So what it is in detail is essentially eliminating this pocket veto. So it makes it mandates that the mayor within 4 meetings of council, which is 4 weeks, has to put the agenda, has to refer it to a committee, and then it lays out for the committee a time frame. So this is again intended as more guardrails. I think typically the mayor refers an item to committee right away, but this makes sure that within 4 meetings, essentially a month, that it is referred to committee and put in the agenda for consideration. So in effect, it preserves the right for any idea from any of the city council members to be considered. So as I mentioned, the mayor is supportive. He was sponsor as well. This did pass unanimously on council. Separately, the Democratic Party earlier this week, Cincinnati Democratic Party endorsed this as well. So it has the support. I don't know what the charter committee has done, but they were, Carolyn might be able to jump on that, but the charter committee was at the press conference and at City Hall speaking in favor of it. So I think it's fair to say that it has support of the charter committee and at least the Democratic Party. So issue 11, that's what it is. Vote yes on issue 11 means that we would eliminate the pocket veto, which I think is fundamentally just undemocratic. And hopefully that gives you some sense of what it is. And Carolyn, if you're on and you want to jump in with any additional perspective. By the way, Carolyn is my neighbor, and I'm literally in my living room, so I could probably look out and see her across the street. But so
any questions to either Councilman Jeffries or Carolyn Miller? It's good to see you, Carolyn. About this issue, are you all got it? You got the message? One person I talked to, I think it was a charter committee person, wanted it to be a shorter time frame than the 2 weeks. That's the only criticism of this I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to mention that pre-1999 in the old system, the mayor worked under the rules of council, which always said that the mayor needed to refer items within 2 weeks. So that's where the 2 weeks came from. And now, since the mayor is elected separately, is not a member of council, the mayor officially really isn't under the rules of council. So that's how this loophole kind of came about. So that's why it needs some fixing. And the 2 previous mayors either threatened or in fact did this. I'm not going to go into particular examples. So it has been done. And maybe the public was not aware of it, but I think some council members were pretty upset that their ideas and legislation weren't getting pushed forward. So I think this is a good idea, and the Charter Committee has officially endorsed it. So, and I'm glad to hear that the Dems are doing that as well.
Okay.
Oh, Carolyn or Mark, let me, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So it takes 4 weeks. They refer it to the council within 4 weeks, right? But is there another time period the council can work on it and then put it forth within another 4 weeks?
Well, it's
Yeah,
4
it's-
meetings, 4 meetings, 4 meetings. So the process is that a council members like Mark Jeffries will have a piece of legislation. They give it to the clerk. That's the initial filing of it. And then the mayor knows about that, and the mayor has the 4 weeks to refer it to a committee. Then the committee chair has 4 meetings. The committee chair has 4 meetings to get it on their agenda. And then once it's voted out of the committee, the mayor has another 4 meetings to get it back on the council agenda. So the only problem can be most of the committees only meet every other week. The budget committee, finance committee meets every week. So that could mean actually 8 weeks, not 4 weeks. So you could have some, and considering a long summer recess that they have, legislation could get delayed, but hopefully, as Mark mentions, these will be outside limits, not inside limits, and that people will move along.
Yeah, no, and I think you said it all, but just to add to that point, we don't want to create the culture norm that it's a norm to wait 4 weeks to refer legislation. That's the opposite of what we want. The culture norm today is you introduce it. If I introduce a piece of legislation, it has to be in by, like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, it'll show up on the council agenda for referral to a committee the following week or the week after that. So that is the normal course of business, as it frankly should be. I think this power, quote unquote, to delay for a few weeks does need to be done very in a limited fashion, and very carefully, because there might be a case where maybe somebody else is working on the same item, or it's a very hot topic where the mayor may say, hold on a second, let's cool heads a little here. Before you introduce this radical idea, let's get the stakeholders together and figure out what the right path forward is before people put together craziness. But I think the most important thing is this can't be the norm. Like, the norm needs to continue to be, you introduce it on Tuesday, it gets referred on Wednesday, and is considered within the next few weeks.
Well, that's a good explanation from you too. And I don't want to prolong it unless there's some other questions, or if by the end of the time frame here, maybe somebody will come up with other questions for you. But I want to get to Carrie Russell Hartman, who's the political director of the Ryan campaign. As I say, we worked hard to try to get a representative from J.D. Vance, who's the other candidate for the U.S. open seat. This is the first time we've had an open seat, as Rob Portman is retiring. So this is a big battle going on. It's getting a lot of national attention and a huge amount of money. I just heard that Mitch McConnell had a $28 million investment in the Ryan campaign. So some of us who are interested in campaign finance reform are kind of aghast at the amount of money that's being spent, both by Democrats and Republicans, in terms of campaigns. And sometimes some of the people that are giving the big donations are the ones that are expecting big favors. Well, let me not give my sermon on that, but let's turn this over to Carrie Russell Hartman, who's the political director of Congressman Tim Ryan's campaign against J.D. Vance. Obviously, this is not a debate because we do not have a spokesperson for J.D. Vance, but are there several debates actually coming up, Carrie? And I'll turn it over to you for some remarks about the campaign.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I am Carrie Hartman, the political director for Tim Ryan. Yes, we do. We've finally agreed to some debates. We wanted to do a lot more than we actually got, but unfortunately, the Vance team has only agreed to 2. So we will be having our first debate October 10th, and our second debate will be October 17th. So we are looking forward to those and preparing for those. I apologize that the congressman couldn't be here today, but like you mentioned, this race is getting very expensive. So he is out making some calls today and trying to raise some money. Unfortunately for our campaign, we are not backed by people like Mitch McConnell, who can just dump in $30 million worth of advertisements for us. And we don't have a billionaire supporting our campaign the way JD Vance has had. Most of our money comes from small dollar donations from working class folks throughout the state. Congressman Ryan is a relentless advocate for working families. We know that Ohioans are working harder than ever, but Ohio as a state keeps falling further behind. So Tim wants to fight to raise wages and make healthcare more affordable and to really revitalize the manufacturing so we can start making things in Ohio again and not outsource everything to China. And we know that this election is all about freedom also, particularly the freedom to choose when and where you can have a family. And our opponent is taking a very extreme view on the issue of abortion. And in fact, we believe that's pretty terrifying. So starting next week, we are kicking off a bus tour. So we will be traveling to every corner of the state, talking to workers and farmers and nurses and teachers, and trying to get our message out and really get in front of as many people as we can to talk about how and what we plan to do when we get to the Senate.
Do you want to mention some of the key campaign issues that you're working on? I mean,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the major issue that we are working on is we are running what we call a workers first campaign. We know that a lot of manufacturing has left the state of Ohio, and that is priority for Congressman Ryan, is to get some of these jobs back to Ohio and really boost up the middle class in Ohio, because we've seen over the years, jobs being outsourced in a way that makes it hard for Ohio to compete on a national level. Wages are dropping, and we ultimately, looking out for middle-class Ohioans, what we want is to everyone to have fair wages, to be able to provide for their families, to take care of their aging parents, to take care of their grandkids, maybe take a little trip to Disney World, have some extra cash to remodel your kitchen. We're not asking for a whole lot. We just want our middle class to stop feeling like they're pinching pennies all the time and scraping by, and really taking care of the working folk of Ohio. So that's our number one issue.
Some questions or responses to the whole campaign. Obviously, JD Vance isn't here to talk about his. We had a forum several years ago when he did the book Hillbilly Elegy, where we had some of Cincinnati, of course, has a lot of urban Appalachians, and Mike Maloney, who's a leader of that, and some other people had a panel about that book. Obviously, he's turned very political, gotten the endorsement of our former president, who he had criticized at one time or another. Some of us think, whether we're Republican, Charter-Rate, or Democrats, that this election is more than just an average election, that democracy in a way is on the ballot. Does Congressman Ryan have some feelings about that?
Yeah, we absolutely believe that democracy is in jeopardy. In fact, the polling that we've done throughout the state indicates that's one of the number one concerns that Ohioans have is the threat on democracy. That is why we are continuing to fight to get our message out and sort of try to cut through the national extremism coming from both sides of the party, quite honestly. We are trying to stick to the kitchen table issues that Ohioans are mostly concerned about and not sort of fall into this extreme rhetoric that is happening a lot from the other side too, and being sort of promoted by the former president as well. I think the violence in the rhetoric is very alarming to us as well. And so that's why we have tried to stick with just a very message about hard work and to try to break through some of the nonsense on the national level that can sometimes arise in these big campaigns. We have started a lot of constituency groups, and one of them, I just had a really great meeting yesterday with our group that we're calling Veterans for Ryan, and their biggest issue is this concern about the threat on our democracy. They most of the veterans that we've been talking to are appalled by what happened on January 6, 2021, and they see it as a real threat to our democracy and our national security, and that's why so many veterans are supporting Tim Ryan and are concerned about our election integrity as well as democracy as a whole. So that is one thing that we are trying to fight against.
Carrie, we've got a very thoughtful group here. What do other people think are the key issues facing Congress, the Senate, and what's at stake at this election? Sarah Gideon, you always have lots of thoughts, or Dan Zavon.
I have a question.
Good.
What you mentioned, the middle class. What programs are you targeting for those less fortunate?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that continuing access to healthcare, affordable healthcare, is the number one concern of ours as well. Increasing the Medicaid and Medicare kind of loophole that exists will help benefit more people. I know this is a discussion that President Biden is having currently right now about ending hunger, and that is something that we are also very interested in to help sort of the lower class, low income folks. I think that also our message of raising wages for workers will also help kind of boost up and hopefully pull more people out of poverty as well. And then to talk about healthcare again, another thing that Congressman Ryan is very passionate about is lowering the cost of prescription medicine, particularly insulin. He was pretty outraged about the cost of insulin and the fact that Republicans are not that concerned that people are paying sometimes hundreds of dollars out of pocket for a medicine that they need to survive. We think that is appalling. And so lowering the cost of prescription meds, increasing access to healthcare is certainly a priority for us, and not only just the working class, but also, but low income and for helping to pull people out of poverty as well.
Yeah, Dan, how about you?
I haven't seen any or many yard signs. Is that not as much of a thing as it used to be? Or is it just that I'm staying home a lot more because of COVID?
It's still a thing. We continue to we're sell out of our yard signs. Every shipment we have, our yard signs are gone within days. So we have another shipment coming. I'm told they will be here next week, and we are disseminating them through our county parties. Our Democratic County Party chairs will be getting shipments. And so hopefully we'll be getting more, but they're out there. They're just, they're going fast. So we're trying to keep up with the demand for yard signs this year.
No one has called me and asked for a yard sign placement.
Okay, we'll put you on our list if you'd like one.
I wouldn't mind. I used to have 4 or 5 signs in my yard, and I realized it's already almost October and I have none.
You could
Yeah.
go to headquarters, Dan, the headquarters in Off Ridge. You know where that is?
Yeah,
When Webbling, they have all kinds of yard signs.
yeah, I know, but I'm used to people calling me by this time and asking if it's okay to put one in my yard, and usually other people do it. So, does Congressman Ryan have a position on ranked choice voting?
That's a fantastic question. I don't know that, actually. I haven't had that conversation with him, but it is pretty fascinating to watch how it is working in other states, isn't it? I'm interested to see how successful that can be, but I'm not sure Ryan's position on that.
Oh, yes, Sarah.
Okay, this is an impolite question. I don't know if anybody's raised this. You know, Mr. Ryan is going throughout the state sounding a little conservative to some of my left-wing friends. And we understand what he's trying to do. And he also, I'm sure he even believes some of that. He probably does believe it. But will that position him? And one of the things that's not working in Congress, of course, is that you can't get things done because it's very hard to get the Republicans to agree to anything. And I was wondering how he hopes to work on that, and how, in Congress, how he worked to get bipartisan support of things. I don't really know what kinds of legislative record he has. What did he sponsor?
Yeah. So one example of that is of a bipartisan bill he worked on recently in Congress was a bill to lower the cost of EpiPens for people who have allergic reactions and need to buy an EpiPen to carry with them. That was like the most recent bipartisan bill he worked on, but he has a record of working across the aisle in Congress to get things done. Now, you made a good point. Things are getting a little more polarized, and he has had a long career in Congress. So perhaps when he first got to Congress, things were a little easier to get done in a bipartisan manner, and it just continues to get harder and harder. But he's not afraid to go against his party when he needs to, and he's also not afraid to go across the aisle for help when he needs to get things done. I'm hoping that this translates well to the Senate, but as we all know, it just continues to get more and more divided. But that's why I think that having a moderate message from Tim Ryan will hopefully help kind of bridge that divide and get things done the way they need to get done in Congress and Senate. You're right, he does have a pretty moderate message, but in order to kind of cut through some of that extremism, that's what we found has been working for the regular voters, the regular people in Ohio that maybe fall in between parties, right? Or may not know what their political identity is. And they care about things like wages and healthcare and the potholes in their streets and their crumbling infrastructure. So those are the things that we are most concerned about in this election, and that's maybe too moderate for folks, but I think that is something that is important to, most Ohioans. So that's what we continue to talk about.
Carrie, do you see the message? Oh, are you finished, Sarah?
Yeah. Thank you.
Carrie, do you see the message in the chat, the question?
Yeah, the issues do keep coming up in debates. And one of the things that I will say about culture wars is that maybe this falls into the culture wars theme, but one of the things that Tim Ryan feels very strongly about is protecting access to abortion. With the Dobbs decision a few months ago, and basically the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we've seen so many situations where women have had to leave the state or leave dangerous situations. In fact, their health has been in jeopardy in order to have access to care. And that is, perhaps people think that this is more of a culture war issue, but we really believe that this is a issue of healthcare and an issue of freedom. And so that is one thing that we will continue to fight for. Tim Ryan is also on record saying that he wants to end the filibuster and codify Roe v. Wade. Ending the filibuster is something that is a little controversial, but it is something that he thinks that needs to happen in order to get things done in Washington. So that's how where he stands on some of those issues that may be seen as more of the culture wars issues. They will likely come up in the debates, but we're not afraid to answer tough questions. And we're not afraid to come onto all these forums and talk to as many people as we can too, right? So the 2 debates will be televised. And we will be promoting them a lot on our team too, but yeah, both of them will be televised, so we hope people can tune in.
What dates are they?
October 10th, that one is in Cleveland, but like I said, will be televised. And then October 17th is in Youngstown. Again, it will be widely televised.
Okay, thanks.
Are you getting some help from our other senator, Senator Sherrod Brown? Because one thing that he's been terribly good at is getting at that white male vote that swung to the Republican Party and Trump. Even in the last election in Ohio, where Trump won Ohio, Sherrod Brown won pretty handily because he has that message of some of the things you've been talking about, that a lot of white males, especially us dumb white males, we need people like Sherrod Brown to get through to us.
Yeah, we work very closely with Senator Brown's team. He's actually going to be doing a lot of campaigning for us starting next week. He's going to be hitting some college campuses and community colleges. And so, yeah, we've been, he's 100% behind us and really been helping us quite a bit. And honestly, I think the 2 of them will make an incredible team in the Senate.
Yeah.
And, you know, Senator Brown also has a record of fighting for people. So we're really excited to see what that looks like for Ohio, to have 2 very bold senators working in our corner. So yeah, Senator Brown is helping us. And you're exactly right. We are really, first of all, our staff is some of the most talented people in the nation, quite honestly. It is really cool to be a part of this team, but they have done a lot of research and done a lot to really find out why those, and you're right, you made a good point, mostly middle-aged white men, why they voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump twice, and figuring out what they care about and what motivated them and what kind of made them flip, and how we can get them back, how we can get them back to the more democratic message of fighting for the working class and you know, raising those wages, and so everybody can get a fair shot. The debates, I see a question in the chat, sorry. The debates are scheduled to be in the evening. I don't think we have actual time yet, but I'm guessing they will be like prime time 7 p.m., 8 p.m. For TD. I think we're waiting to see like when they can be broadcasted, but I'm assuming it'll be evening broadcast television.
On the abortion issue, I wanted to pass along a line of argument that I thought of for talking to anti-abortion people, sort of be careful what you wish for line of argument. And that is, I say that government shouldn't be involved in the decision because the government that can prohibit abortion is a government that could require abortion.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we think. And part of our fear is government intruding on our decisions of when and where we can have a family. Like, where does that end? Are they also going to, does the government or the extreme views of someone like JD Vance also want to make decisions about where and when we can have a divorce? He's made comments about women that are in violent marriages should stay in the marriage for the sake of the children. Like, we think this is not a good message to be sending to women, right? And we're concerned about the freedom to marry who you want, right? And even JD Vance is even taking the extreme view of banning pornography. So it seems as if they want government in our bedrooms all of the time. And that is something that is quite frightening to us.
It's not a good argument, a good message to send to women to stay in a violent marriage. It's also not a good message to send to their children. Exactly.
And not a great message to send to men either. Bad behaving men should not be protected by any of this either, right? So it's just not a great message all around, and it's pretty frightening.
Are you getting to travel around the state quite a bit and picking up vibrations of what people are really concerned about?
Yeah. And it's a lot of the same issues that we've been talking about. Honestly, since the Dobbs decision, though, we're hearing many people, not just women, talk about abortion a lot more in a way that is, I come from kind of an abortion background. I used to work in reproductive rights before I got into politics. And it's amazing how the conversation around abortion has changed just in the past several months. From people that may have considered themselves to be pro-life are now saying things like, well, we do at the very minimum need abortion for, cases of rape, incest, health of the mother, right? Like, maybe we should have emergency access to abortion at the bare minimum. And that is something that I have seen change, and something that people around the state really do want to talk about. I think it's that threat of government making decisions for you that it doesn't seem right. Seems like something that should be made between a family or a couple, or even a woman or someone who's able to get pregnant should have that conversation with their doctor and not their senators in the room. So that is definitely something that I'm not sure we thought we would be talking about abortion that much on this campaign, but since the Dobbs decision, it's certainly something that people want to talk about the most. And then they want to talk about outsourcing jobs. We have seen a lot of manufacturing jobs leave the state. And that is something that is concerning to people who especially have worked in that field for many, many years and may feel like they are too far in their career to make some sort of career transition. And so how do we help those people who have been working in manufacturing jobs for so long and now can't find a job or need to transition their skills to maybe from manufacturing to more of an environmental job or a job in technology, and try to keep those wages high enough that they don't have to have 2 or 3 or 4 different jobs to get by.
Maybe we should require representatives and senators to go to medical school.
Maybe, not a bad idea. Although I think that would kind of limit our options of candidates, unfortunately. But
No, after they're elected,
Okay.
have them do that in their spare time instead of raising campaign funds. How about that? Have
Yeah, I
public
mean,
financing and they'll have time to go to medical school.
there we go. Yeah. But then that means they might be making more decisions about my access to health. So I'm not sure how I feel about that either.
If they're gonna be doing that, I want them to do it from a more knowledgeable basis.
That's a good point.
Oh, there's a question in the chat for you, Carrie.
Yes, so we are gonna have plenty of open events in Cincinnati before the election. Let me pull up my calendar. We are the last week of the election, we have a very ambitious goal of doing a rally every single day in different cities across the state. So our big Cleveland rally, I believe, or Cincinnati rally, I believe is going to be Friday, November 4th. Let me confirm that and I'll send you guys a follow-up email so you can be invited. But we are working on locking in all the locations and times for our big rallies. Most of them will be in the evening around 6 or 7 p.m. But like I said, we're getting the bus next week. And so we will be making plenty of stops in the Cincinnati area, Dayton area, and all over the state. So, but our big rallies will happen the last week of the election leading up to Election Day.
Don't want to leave anybody out. Other responses, questions, thoughts? One thing that often is polls or people on the news are often talking about how midterm elections are often a question of backing the president and how he's doing. And so when inflation was rising and prices were soaring for gas and things like that, there was a thought that there would be a Republican sweep of Congress. Have you felt a change in that in your perspective?
Yeah, I think, I think the biggest swing away from that has been the Dobbs decision. Honestly, I think we all kind of thought that with the president's approval ratings being so low and then the rising costs of, beef and chicken and our groceries, as well as the gas prices, that was really concerning to us because that goes into this whole message of like making just like life in general more affordable for everyone in Ohio, right? And so one thing that Tim Ryan is not afraid to do, though, is to vote against Joe Biden or go against Joe Biden. He has done that, plenty of times, right? He even challenged Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House several years ago, too. So while he has a great working relationship with many Democrats, he's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. And so we thought that this was going to be, more of a fight to talk about reducing the cost of groceries and gas. But fortunately, we're seeing the inflation drop a little bit. Gas prices has gone down too. But honestly, that's not what we're really hearing people talk about as much as concern for job security. And concern about their freedom to choose too. That is probably the number one topic that people are talking about. And like I said, it's not just women. Like men have been talking about it too. It affects men just as much as it affects women too.
So any other thoughts and ideas from folks? Or return to the pocket veto.
I have a question about the proposed charter amendment. If someone can just clarify, during this meeting, you've gone back and forth between saying 4 weeks, 4 meetings. Which is it?
We got Carolyn still with us?
Yeah, I'd be glad. The charter amendment language says 4 meetings. So in terms of city council during the regular part of the year, not the summer, that equivocates to 4 meetings because they meet every week. It does not equivocate to 4 weeks if you talk about meetings for committees. So the charter language in every case where they're listing a time limit, it does say 4 meetings. Does that clarify that? I hope so.
Is that?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the, I should mention the League of Women Voters voter guide will be coming out. I don't have a date yet, probably within the next 2 weeks. So watch for that online and at the libraries, because that will have discussion of all the issues and we'll have information about all the candidates.
Other questions, other thoughts? Carrie, want to give you a final, any final words here? Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I just want to let everybody know that you can update your voter registration up to and on October 11th. Early voting starts October 12th. And election day is November 8th. And so I hope we can count on your support because I truly believe that Tim Ryan is the best candidate and he is exactly who we need in the Senate.
Have you run into, I know Common Cause and League of Women Voters are very concerned about, having safe and open elections. Have you run into any people plotting to, there's a great concern about safety in the election and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there is a concern. And so we have a voter protection team that we are recruiting attorneys from all over the state to help us with observing the polls on election day and throughout early vote. I will say my most favorite voter protection attorney is my husband up in Toledo. He is helping in the Toledo area. And so, but we have many, many attorneys across the state that are right now being trained to observe polling locations. And we also have a voter protection hotline that people can call with any sort of concerns about the polls or the election integrity. So yeah, it's a concern for us, definitely. And that's why we are trying to recruit as many people as we can to kind of help us on election day, whether that means rushing to court and filing a quick complaint or just being there observing the polls and making sure that everything is run the way it should be.
Bill, Carolyn here. I think we in Ohio have to feel really good that unlike many other states, we mandate that we have equal numbers of Republican and Dem folks at the polling places, keeping in charge at our boards of elections. So I think that's been a great protection in Ohio, and that's why perhaps we have better elections than some other people in other states who don't have that. So we still need to be on the watch, but I'm very thankful that we at least have that system in place in Ohio.
Good point, Carolyn. The other thing Common Cause is doing, which fascinates me, they've been recruiting volunteers to work on misinformation coming out of websites, disinformation and misinformation, so they can get that out. I'm not sure how they're solving it once they find the misinformation, but that's one thing Common Cause is doing a lot of volunteer recruitment about. And Lord knows we are having lots of misinformation and disinformation coming at us from all sides. And I bet you're finding that as well as you campaign, Carrie. Well,
yeah.
Any other thoughts before we leave off a little early?
Are you aware of any pre-planning in the event of violent intimidation tactics at polling places?
Oh, gosh.
We haven't heard any rumors about any plans. And the point was made before about like, we do have, it codified in our law that we have to have a bipartisan system for our elections. I think most I think we trust that most boards of elections across the state are pretty well connected with their sheriff offices. So I'm hoping that we will be prepared in the event of any violence, but I don't think that is something that our team has really heard about. And so I think what we're mostly concerned about is what happens internally, to those voting machines, what is being said by poll workers, making sure that people aren't turned away on election day and that they are able to at least vote provisionally in the event that they show up to the wrong polling location or something like that. So we are, obviously aware of the extremism that's happening, but we haven't heard of any actual plans for anything like violence on election day. So we still want to make sure that we are telling people that it is safe to vote. Please go vote on election day. And if there are concerns, request an absentee ballot.
I've heard that some people are being invited to or encouraged to come to polling places with their guns.
Oh,
And I just wondered what I think if that happens, it would be important to have had discussions among law enforcement and campaigns ahead of time to just have planning for that contingency. How should law enforcement react exactly in some sort of planning, training, thinking, at least?
yeah, I think that's a good point.
I'm Nanny Gerwin. I completely second that. I think it's be wonderful to have a good couple of plans for eventualities that we hope are not going to occur. But so often it's very difficult in the moment to coordinate things. And I think that's really, really imperative that there be such sort of a back plan.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know Common Cause is doing some work on reporting on any incidents that take place at polls and getting some volunteers to do that. But I'm not sure whether there's anything going on that gets quite at what you're talking about. And hopefully we won't need it, but I think we need to be prepared.
I think so.
Well, look, I can let you all go a little early with a remark that we are, again, assembling a week from today. And Greg Landsman and Congressman Shavit are both taking part in next week's event. And we'll look at a couple of ballot issues as well. So I want to thank Carrie Russell Hartman for doing a terrific job of representing her candidate. I'm sorry once again that we weren't able to get J.D. Vance or a substitute to come onto this stage, but that's the way it goes sometimes. But we did try. We certainly did try. Anyway, thank you very much, all of you thoughtful people. And any parting comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next week, I hope.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.